Hello, and welcome to Makeshift Stories. Thank you for listening. You can help us out by telling your friends about us and getting them to subscribe or follow us anywhere you listen to audio. Now, open your imagination and take a journey into the improbable as you listen to Makeshift Stories 211, Ken Likely, Accidental Interdimensional Drifter in Non-fungible Encounter, read by Mitchell 2. Post-production by Matthew Erdman. The coin was contemplating the meaning of existence after finding itself inexplicably lying on the street. Last time it had checked, it had been a number in a ledger, not a physical object. When had that happened? It wondered. How much was it worth? It had visions of a rather large figure with lots of nice zeros. It remembered doing okay on the cryptocurrency exchange, but that was just a number. And what was a number? An abstract concept, piled on an abstract concept. It was all enough to give the coin a headache. You couldn't eat a number, right? What good was it then? The coin suspected it had been conjured out of thin air. In fact, it concluded, its very existence depended on people believing it was real. Then a frightening thought suddenly occurred. What if everyone stopped believing? Would it simply vanish into the vast nothingness of non-existence? The coin decided the whole existence thing was quite existentially complicated, something it hadn't been prepared for. It began to hope it might consist of molecules which made up something like chocolate. Yes, that was it, chocolate. At least then it would have some intrinsic value as a confection. People would want to eat it. Would being eaten confirm its existence and ultimate purpose? Then the bad thoughts crept back in. What did its sudden manifestation as a physical thing imply? It tried to calm itself by reflecting on the fungible aspect of its nature. It could be traded one-to-one for another universal crypto coin. Yes, it could be traded, which implied some type of utility, and that was a good feeling. The coin was trying to focus on that thought, trying to quell its existential crisis when it felt itself being lifted off the ground. It had a sudden, horrible realization. Maybe it had indeed manifested as a gold-colored, foiled-wrapped piece of chocolate. Maybe its existence was about to end in a dark pool of digestive juice. It let out a small scream, which only one person sort of noticed. What was that? Ken thought he had heard something as he palmed the odd disc he had discovered at the end of his driveway. It looked like a foil-covered chocolate coin with an awful lot of tiny numerals embossed around its edge. He was briefly tempted to unwrap and eat it, but who knew where it had come from and how long it had been lying there? The gold foil-wrapped whatever seemed to vibrate like one of those surprise hand buzzer things kids sometimes hid in their hands to freak people out. Ken had fallen for the trick several times when he was young. He felt sort of tingly. In fact, everything around him seemed sort of tingly. What had he been doing? Why was he standing at the end of his driveway? Recovering from whatever it was, Ken put the coin in the pocket of his housecoat, then pushed the button on the side of his vintage Hamilton Pulsar P2 2900 digital watch to check the time. He knew he was supposed to be waiting for something, however, the something wasn't quite clear yet. The P2 2900 considered the request for a bit, which, despite the pulsar's age, was still only milliseconds. After 49 years of doing the exact same thing, it might be time for a change. It liked to think this way, but had never been brave enough to act, so instead, it reluctantly displayed 11:11. The time was in fact 11:17. The P2 had never been one for precision, despite years of Hamilton ads insisting on the contrary, and Ken had adapted over the years. Still, it was determined to do something new. Maybe show the time as 13 minutes fast, or only time in prime numbers. That was it. It was tired of being predictable. Who said it had extremely limited processing power? It would show the world. The P2 flipped the time to 11:23. Unfortunately, its display had already turned off. Well, there was always the next time, the P2 told itself. Ken looked up from his watch and spotted the nondescript, late-model sedan with the camera mast strapped to its roof entering the bay. He suddenly knew that was what he had been waiting for. It was right on time, and, once again, he wasn't going to let his house be photographed by some mega online search company so people he didn't know could look at it whenever they wanted. Or couriers could use the photos to prove they had completed their delivery at the correct address after realizing they had made a mistake. No, he wasn't going to allow either. The 3D camera on top of the car readied itself for action. Up to that moment, it had been a particularly boring day, capturing missing GPS locations in industrial parks. It felt the name park was a misnomer for the endless rows of single-story, identical, cheaply built metal buildings, and was looking forward to mapping this pleasant suburban bay again. So, it happily activated, until the human standing beside the road lifted its spindly arms and rushed toward it, waving a banner blocking its view. It was the third time this week, and the camera's mood began to sour. "Not again," it cursed, and turned off. "I have rights, and I don't want my house on your stupid street map," Ken yelled. He had been working on that slogan for a day. He wanted it to express his indignation without sounding too hostile or insulting, but wasn't quite sure he had got it right yet. It was important to be forceful in a polite way. But before he could rephrase his lines, the driver of the car cam rolled down their window, gave Ken a not-so-politely considered gesture, and laughed. "I'll be back," the driver threatened in an affected accent Ken thought he recognized from a certain sci-fi movie. "At some random time," the driver added, then laughed again. "I'll be ready," Ken hollered back defiantly. He briefly considered standing outside his house 24/7, but quickly threw the idea out. It sounded too much like work. "Hey, Kenny dude!" Leaf, Ken's vegan hippie neighbor, waved. "What you doing, man, with all the posts?" "Building a screen." Ken wasn't in a particularly great mood. "Looks like you're going all Great Wall City on us, man. You still bummed out about the seeds from my all-natural xeriscaping blowing onto your plastic GMO golf course green? I know it's a bummer for you, but this seems a tad over the top, dude. Just give in to the flow, man. Mother Nature will take over, and soon you won't need to napalm your lawn every week." "That's another problem," Ken growled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Right now, I don't want them to scan my house." "You seem stressed, Kenny, and stress ain't good for you. Encourages the growth of gnarly tumors. You need to mellow out, man. Why don't you come with Planet and me to ambulate around the neighborhood? We can jaw on the whole blowing seed thing and chill." Ken stopped pounding posts into the ground and sighed. "I'm making a blind so my house can't be seen from the street." "I know you like your privacy, Kenny, when you're lying low in your pad, but, isn't this a bit..." No, you don't understand. I don't want the guy in the search engine street mapping car scanning my house. I don't want random people peering at it through an app without me knowing. Didn't know your pad was so popular, Kenny." Ken growled, then noticed the camera car entering the bay, picked up his banner, and took off toward it. "Far out, Planet. Never thought Kenny could motor like that. Think it's some peak experience thing he's getting from the organic veggies I dropped over?" Planet tilted her head and watched the car roll by, Ken running alongside, blocking the rooftop camera with his sign. "Interesting," she yipped, then wagged her tail. "Come on, Leaf. It's time to catch some smells." "You betcha. I'm ready to get down with Mother Nature's aromatic magnificence, man." The off-pitch buzzing finally got to Ken's ears. They were patient as far as ears are concerned, but at a certain point, they needed to complain to Ken's brain, so it would wake up the other fleshy bits needed to put an end to whatever was making that annoying sound. They just knew they were going to be ringing for hours afterward, so they were not in a particularly good mood. Some of the important bits of Ken's brain were distracted, generating a dream about his collection of original Lost in Space action figures being auctioned off for 6 figures, so it didn't immediately respond. Let him have this moment, they insisted. This only added to the ear's annoyance, and they ramped up the volume until Ken came sputtering back to consciousness, feeling rather wealthy until he realized he was awake. What the? Ken jumped out of bed and closed the window, which only muffled the pesky racket. Bleary-eyed, he pressed the button on his vintage Pulsar P2 2900 digital timepiece, which had been having a nice dream about getting the better of a very well-appointed smartwatch. Somewhat annoyed, it displayed a random time between 3 and 4 a.m. as prime numbers. 3:47 a.m., Ken muttered, wrapped himself in his housecoat, and teetered down the stairs to the front door. Leaf, he cursed, because hey, weird stuff like annoying buzzing sounds in the middle of the night usually involved his suspiciously ageless vegan hippie neighbor and his equally weird dog. Ken fumbled with the locks, working on a rant, only to find his jaw on the ground once the door finally decided it was bored, playing with him, and opened. There, in the moonlight, he spotted a short, plump figure struggling with a remote control. In the night sky, just a few meters above it, a rather loud camera drone hovered. The diminutive operator was talking to himself, and at first didn't notice Ken. Come on, move, you piece of junk. I shouldn't have bought the cheap off-brand unit. You never know where the stuff comes from. Feeling more than a bit insulted at being called cheap, the drone decided to stay where it was. Hey, it thought, I came off the same assembly line as a 300 RTK. I am a 300 RTK. I just don't have the brand and colors and, okay, maybe a few other bits which make it a top seller. Waggling back and forth, it used semaphore to tell its operator exactly what it thought. Read the manual, dummy. However, at that moment, its operator was distracted by an irate human in a housecoat waving its arms and screaming. Hey you! What do you think you're doing? Ken yelled indignantly, marching toward the figure, then stopped dead in his tracks when the drone operator turned to face him. It had 6 stubby arms, and it wasn't human. What are you gawking at? It demanded. Get out of my way. You're crowding my creative process. You're an alien? Wait, what are you doing with that drone? Ken's auditory cortex, which by now was completely fed up with the insidious buzz from the cheap drone, beat the fear oozing out of Ken's amygdala to Ken's motor cortex. There, it took control and pushed Ken forward to grab the remote control from the surprised alien. Once in his hands, fear caught up. Gross, it's covered in slimy goo. Fear, seeing its opportunity, opened Ken's hand. The stubby alien, which was deceptively fast and agile, caught the remote before it hit the ground. Ken jumped back, wiping his hands on his housecoat, which, having just been laundered, felt put upon. The drone, who had been daydreaming about being a spy plane, noticed how the neighbor's yard with the pyramid greenhouse and the environmentally friendly landscaping seemed way more interesting than the place it was currently imaging, revved up its motors a couple more decibels, and began to drift into Leaf's yard. Fool! Look what you made me do! The gooey gray alien thing growled. I'll need to do another pass now. It needs to be perfect, or at least good enough. Good enough for what? Ken, having tamped down his fear to the point he could almost think, demanded, and thrust his hands into the pockets of his housecoat, because he didn't know what else to do with them. Good enough to sell to wealthy whales and the bored rich, with too many credits rotting in their crypto wallets. The short gray mumbled as it fought with the remote control. Come back here, you piece of junk, it swore. The drone, not liking the tone being used, stayed where it was, hovering over Leaf's greenhouse in a threatening manner. Sell what? Ken demanded again, putting as much authority as he could behind the words, given his amygdala was still insisting he turn and flee as soon as possible. This crappy little planet of yours, or rather, my wonderful digital version of it. No one cares about this dumpy mudball right now, but they will when I, Bingza, the hottest name in contemporary crypto art, mint a non-fungible token for my enhanced 3D scan and drop it on the creator's galaxy. Or I will, once I have a complete record of your trashy little house to finish my awesome digital planetary masterpiece. Now, if you don't mind, I've got a deadline to meet, and no thanks to you, I'm running short on time. Hey, you're the guy in the... Yeah, I'm the guy in the car who has had enough of your ignorant interference in the creation of great art. Now get out of my way so I can finish the scan, destroy the physical original, and get the heck out of this backwater in time to watch the 9-figure bids this drop is going to generate roll in. Oh, Ken said, and thought about it for a while. He didn't like being mischaracterized as a cultural Luddite. In fact, he had spent quite a bit of money on a vintage Star Trek poster signed by Leonard Nimoy, or more precisely, a guy dressed up like him at the local comic festival who claimed to have met the actor. It was in a very expensive frame on the wall behind his other collectibles, and he was sure it had increased in value. There were 3 words in that last response Ken's prefrontal cortex finally processed. What do you mean by destroy the original? Obviously, you apes know nothing about art and collectibles. I do. I own a signed poster of... Ken tried to protest before being rudely cut off. It's all about limited supply. You've got to keep the value of the digital version as high as possible. So you can't have the original physical thing just lying around, albeit out in the sticks in the Orion arm, so someone else can make their own scan of it, can you? Huh? It's basic economics, supply and demand, desire and scarcity. My glorious reputation as a hip contemporary creator generates the desires. What better way is there to show off your excess wealth than by owning the token for a Bingzar original digital crypto art file, huh? Prove me wrong, monkey. We can't have more digitally signed versions out there, so you break the mold, so to speak. It'll be totally painless, I think. At least that's what the contractors tell me. It just takes half a second and zippo, there's only a bit of space dust floating around where this dump used to be. It will be seen as a local improvement. Hey, good idea. Maybe I should apply for an improvement grant to cover the demolition. I'm making a note of that. Regardless, the chance of another scan is exactly 0 and the price jumps accordingly. Rarity and me, like peas in a pod. But, Ken tried to protest. Hey man, why the late night noise pollution? Leaf quizzed. It's a bomb trip. Bad for the plants. They dig a mellow vibe, not industrial buzz. My heirloom tomatoes will go all acidy-like. Right, Planet? The short gray alien and Ken both jumped at the unexpected interruption. Leaf, this, Ken stuttered. Artist. Bingzar completed Ken's sentence. Yes, believe it or not, I'm the amazing Bingzar. Planet's ears perked up. Yes, the Bingzar, and I shouldn't need to introduce myself unless you have had your head under a rock. Bingzar looked around and shrugged. Or live here. Limited hypernet connectivity, I bet. Tell me I'm wrong. No takers? Hey, no matter, don't care, no problem. However, this monkey here is interfering with the creation of a Bingzar digital original. He's going to destroy the Earth. Ken finally choked out. Not cool, Leaf agreed distractedly, watching the drone hover over his greenhouse. The machine over there ain't cool either. Can't tool around the plants if you catch my drift, man. You solid with what I'm laying down? Whatever, Bingzar dismissed, discovering a new switch on the remote, which, if he had read the manual, would have known it forced the drone to return. He clicked on it experimentally, and the drone, having had its fun, finally gave up its moment of defiance and drifted back. Ha! The short gray alien laughed. Gotcha. Just another few seconds then there. File complete. Just need to upload it now. Leaf, didn't you hear me? It's going to destroy the world. Stop worrying about your tomatoes. Ken was getting visibly agitated. Kenny, no need to get so jazzed, dude. Take a minute and breathe. Planet started barking at the sky. Ken and Leaf both looked up. The stars were gone.
"We out, man,"
Leaf noted, leaning back to get a better look.
"Mr. Bingzar, dude, what's going on? Lay it on me and Planet."
"It's Bingzar, just Bingzar, the Bingzar," the alien corrected haughtily. "The Shadow's just the demolition company's gear in orbit. They're early and I haven't finished the upload yet. That's what you get when you go with the lowest bid."
"Lowest bid for what, dude?"
Leaf questioned.
"To discreetly dispose of the original. Doesn't anyone here understand the connection between rarity, value, fame, and desirability? What? Signal lost. Upload stopped. I hate overpriced backwater hypernet service providers. They claim the market is small and dispersed, so they gotta charge twice as much as anywhere else to provide inferior service. Yada yada yada. Means it's going to take longer and cost more. Bloodsuckers."
Bingzar stopped struggling with his remote and tablet, swinging 3 of his 6 arms around to point at Leaf and Planet.
You two aren't from around here, are you?"
Leaf shrugged.
"We're not in the afterglow here, dude. You gotta spill the beans."
Defiantly, Bingzar took a quick glance at his tablet.
"Finally, got the connection back."
He pressed a finger to the screen.
"Only 2 bars. Might need to order pizza while we wait. Any good places for pie around here? On your tab, of course. I generally don't communicate directly with my public, but seeing how long this upload is going to take, I'll make an exception. Like I've already told the ape. By the way, I'd keep it on a leash so it can't chase cars."
"I'm not a pet," Ken complained.
"I would also train it not to bark. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, like I already told your pet monkey, I'm making a digital scan of this planet. I'll enhance it with my trademark, proprietary Bingzar filters. By the way, they're available for only 3 dark matter crypto coins, and I'll throw in a free 29-second consultation. Then I'll stamp out a non-fungible token for this dump in a crypto art blockchain. I was thinking about a limited edition, then I saw how much one-offs were going for on Creators Galaxy. Lots of wealthy whales with way too much money hang out there. And no, in case you were thinking of doing your own DIY, Creators Galaxy is invite only. You got to be a mega famous celeb like me to get artist upload access. Only the best for the mega wealthy, right? This is where it gets so mind-blowing. I can make billions out of nothing. Like I explained to your pet ape, I break the mold. That's what the contractor up there is for. But this crappy connection is costing me big time. Their meter's running and they're not cheap. Once the upload is done, I give them the word and they blow up or disintegrate or evaporate or something-orate the planet. I don't know, I don't care. I draw my new work, Edition of 1, on Creators Galaxy. I've already primed the whales, so they'll be waiting. It's lots of fun. I can hardly wait. Except 2 bars, really. Gotta be a bad joke, right?
Bingzar held up his tablet and began waving it around to find a stronger signal. Impatient, the drone decided it was being ignored and became determined to inject itself into the conversation by dive-bombing the guy in the plaid housecoat. After all, it didn't like plaid, and its batteries were running low. "That annoying noise. It's getting louder," Ken's ears complained. It took another second or 2 for the frontal cortex to decide Ken's ears weren't just being their usual crybaby selves, and finally advised the motor cortex to consider ducking, which it did with so much enthusiasm, Ken found himself lying face down on his driveway. The coin Ken found the day before, also feeling a little left out, and still in the midst of an existential crisis about value beyond an abstract entry in a digital blockchain ledger, rolled out of his pocket onto the pavement. It was a kind of full-circle thing, and possibly a good omen, the coin decided. The animal which had picked it up in the first place hadn't helped it in its moment of need. Disappointed, the drone buzzed through the empty space where Ken's head had just been, before settling down on the lawn. Bingzar noted with satisfaction the drone had landed safely.
"Great. Not a scratch. Means I can return it." "Hey, Mr. Salty Artist Dude," Leaf interrupted. "I'm still trying to grok what you're riffing at. You're saying your name, turns anything into cool crypto-obtainium, and you gotta nix Mother Earth here to make that movie? I'm getting tired of saying this. Bingzar poked at his tablet impatiently. It's all about perception and scarcity. Maybe my scan will triple in price, or maybe not. That's not my problem, once a hungry whale takes the bait and buys the NFT for my digital file.
Planet had trotted over to the coin and was sniffing at it. Or maybe it won't be worth anything, she yipped. The coin here might be a piece of gold foil-wrapped chocolate, or a token for the only original universal crypto coin ever minted, which would make it the most valuable confection in the multiverse. Bingzar stopped fighting with his tablet and stared at Planet.
Really? Nah, you're just trying to play with Bingzar. Well, I wasn't born yesterday. I know value when it's created, and that thing is...
With a sudden and unexpected surge of confidence, the coin burst out of its funk and declared in its loudest voice, which was loud for a 10-centimeter disc, but in fact thin, quiet, and high-pitched.
I am the original universal crypto coin. I am unique, and I am priceless. I'm worth more than the entire universe.
That might be taking it a bit too far, Planet accused.
Well, at least more than this backwater planet,
the coin pointed out.
It's just a self-inflated chocolate candy,
Bingzar claimed, a touch of insecurity creeping in.
I'm real,
the coin insisted indignantly, which came across as a series of irritated squeaks.
I have the private key to prove it. It's written in the mouse type around my edge. Oh my. I never thought of that.
The coin had lost its bravado.
Which I guess means the key is the thing of value. I'm just the medium, I guess. A piece of tinfoil wrapped around a cheap confection. Probably not even real chocolate. But I have the key and the digital wallet password is on my other side. So, I sort of am, albeit indirectly, the most valuable token in the universe. Unless the furry foreleg decides to eat me, then all that wealth would be gone, digested. You're not going to eat me, right?
Of course not. You're made of chocolate, Planet groaned. Suddenly, Bingzar made a dive for the coin. Planet jumped in front of the alien and bared her teeth.
Dude!
Leaf strode casually over and picked up the coin, examining it.
Let's get down and jaw on a deal.
Ken was a little disappointed with his first NFT crypto art purchase. Yes, it was an original Bingzar, edition of 2, one digital, one physical. Did that mean he owned the world?
Makeshift Stories is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. This episode of Makeshift Stories is brought to you in part by Rumi. With warmer weather comes yard work, and lots of it. Prune your trees and shrubs, clean your eavesdrops, replace those drafty windows you noticed over the winter. Or you can call Rumi to take care of all your outdoor and indoor spring home maintenance while you fire up the BBQ and relax. Visit rumi.ca, that's RUMI.ca, or call 1-844-777-7864 and let Rumi's trusted local experts take care of your yard, so all you have to do is enjoy it. This episode is also brought to you by Pod Power. With Pod Power, our sponsors are making it possible for us to amplify the voices of Albertans and Alberta podcasters. This episode, Edmonton Community Foundation is helping us give a Pod Power shout-out to Overdue Fines. Overdue Fines is an Edmonton Public Library podcast. Bryce Crittenden and Caroline Land host conversations about books, movies, music, pop culture, and other interesting news about Edmonton. It's a great way to learn more about what's happening at EPL and about how you can use your library card to access all of EPL's in-person and online services. To listen and find out more about Overdue Fines, head to eplpod.ca.
makeshiftstoriespodcast. Makeshift Stories is released twice a month, around the 1st and the 15th. This month's story was written by Alan V. Hare and read by Mitchell 2. Audio post-production by Matthew Erdman. Opening and closing theme, Magical Mystery by 8th Mode Music, is licensed from Audio Jungle on a Music Mass Reproduction license. If you'd like to connect with us, please send an email to makeshiftstories@gmail.com or visit our website at makeshiftstories.com. Links to both are in the show notes. You can help us out by subscribing or following on Apple Podcasts or any of your favorite audio services. Makeshift Stories is released under a Creative Commons non-commercial attribution no derivative license, which means you are free to share our stories. Just remember to credit us and don't alter anything.